This is The Bottom Line, a wrap of some of your top business news stories of the day. We begin, as usual, with the number of the day. Today, that number is 25 million. That, according to the Johns Hopkins University, is the amount of global coronavirus cases that have been surpassed. So there's over 25 million confirmed coronavirus cases. Over 850,000 people are said to have succumbed to the coronavirus. In South Africa, there were, at last count, 625,056 confirmed COVID-19 cases, with over 14,000 deaths recorded. The pandemic has battered South Africa's already ailing economy, with National Treasury saying that our economy could contract over 7%. The lockdown has had a devastating impact on jobs and businesses, and Statistics South Africa said only 9% of businesses were operating at full capacity during level 5. Now, in the midst of these very tough times, though, some businesses have found opportunities to grow. Vutlari Varoy, the CEO and founder of Zulzi, joins me via Zoom. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. You've said that Zulzi, which is an online shopping app, has grown over 400% the last 3 years. What happened during lockdown?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and good evening to all the listeners. Yeah, so for us, we're in the online space, and the online space generally has just been growing like over time. For us, we also went through the same thing for the past 3 years that we've been operating. We've been growing over 400% year on year. But what happened this year with COVID, obviously, it was something special for online space, where that growth it sort of like went shoot up, over like 400%. If we look at what we did this year, it was actually we have actually been able to sort of like replicate what we did the entire. All the GMV that we did for last year, we did this year within like 4 months. So yeah, so COVID actually accelerated the growth for all the online players in the market.
So while that's mostly good news for you, in terms of orders, there were also challenges, especially in the beginning of lockdown, when it comes to Zulzi and other apps.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was challenging. I think there was a lot of things that were changing in the space. Like if you look at how we operate as Zulzi, we sort of like work with retailers. So customers order using our platform, our app. They can order the groceries from Pick and Pay, Woolworth, Discount and Clicks, and then we go to the retailers and then we pick the items and then deliver them to the customers. But during lockdown, there was a lot of challenges, not just for Zulzi only, but for the entire ecosystem, whether if you're talking about the retailers themselves, items being out of stock, and also just like there was just too much pressure for any online platform, and we're not different from that. But however, like after a month, we were able to stabilize everything. We had to hire more people. We created a lot of jobs during lockdown. I think we've never had people like that in my life. In one day, at some point we're hiring like 50 people in a day. So I think for us it was something that we've always been wishing for, that we thought was going to happen in 2022, but it happened like this year, and that was great for all the online players. I mean, we've been building this for so long, waiting for a time like this one, So yeah, like I mean, we're ready for it. Actually, let me just put it that way, that we've been anticipating it for quite some time.
Okay, something that you've also anticipated as a company when you're growing is you hope for investment to kind of grow the business. There's a 30 million rand investment that you've said to have gotten from a JSE listed company. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So in fact, that happened last year. We sort of started negotiating last year, and the investment was actually concluded early January this year. We only publicize it like later, but yeah, like that has been helping us obviously to our platform to reach more customers, and I think currently we're focusing a lot more on the lower LSM, middle LSM, because I think that's where we're looking as a platform. Where I think we've done really well on the high LSM, but the middle to lower LSM, we didn't have enough traction there. So that investment is going towards that. We have beefed up our tech team. We're about to release a new amazing app, the Zulzi app, that's coming very soon. So yeah, like I mean, that it's been great for us. I mean, like we are still out there saying, God has been great for us.
Zulzi, CEO Vutlari Varoi, joining me there via Skype. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. It's interesting reading about companies that are experiencing growth as opposed to companies that are struggling because of the effects of the lockdown in South Africa. A company that is facing many challenges is Bidvest. The bank has announced it may retrench nearly 5,000 staff members and realign its operations. That's in response to the challenges being faced by COVID-19 pandemic, according to the bank. They say lockdown restrictions on tourism and hospitality industries have had devastating effects on its businesses, which focuses on forex and related products. Now, in an internal memorandum to employees, the bank says the retrenchments are aimed at ensuring sustainability in a tough economic climate. The bank says it now needs to accelerate the use of digitalization and implement remote banking. Bidvest says the digitalization process will further have a direct impact on structures and some roles might fall away.
One thing that we are battling with the union is to understand what is the business rationale, for Bidvest to really want to lay off 400 employees, especially given this point in time. We were thinking that as the reasonable business, they were supposed to have just waited for 3-4 months. Let's see what direction is the country taking. And then maybe from there we can start talking about the restructuring. So the way it is, we don't believe it is fair, and we don't believe that it is correct that they're doing.
Corruption is a threat to job creation, economic growth, and the reforms that have been planned to try and help the ailing local economy. That's according to Answisa transaction advisory economist Mielani Mkabela. He says corruption will continue to counter any economic revival efforts if it's not dealt with.
The perception of corruption harms the country's image as an investment destination. South Africa is dealing with corruption linked to the procurement of COVID-19 necessities. And all this is happening while the state capture inquiry that investigates corruption and the looting of state resources is underway. Analysts say the perception of corruption will further delay turning the economy around. The local economy is expected to contract by 7.2% this year.
The largest cost of state capture and corruption is to be found in the damage done to South Africa's economic growth potential. Over the past decade of corruption, the country's economic growth potential declined from about 3% per annum to the current level of about 1.5% per annum. As a result of this decline, there are no jobs for people in South Africa. We are in a dire fiscal position with the country facing a fiscal cliff. As a result of this, South Africa now needs an austerity budget at the most inappropriate time. The South African government has no option at the moment but to introduce an austerity budget in the midst of COVID-19.
Others say turning around the economy will be harder because of perceptions of corruption.
Around 35 to 40% of South African budget couldn't be accounted for in terms of project per project, and that's how deep corruption is. And you're looking at the issue of the challenges or the outcome that corruption happens to do. It's instances of corruption, it being a threat to a developmental state, corruption being a threat to job creation, economic growth, and at the same time, you will find that corruption will be a threat to all the reforms that have been planned for.
According to the 2019 Corruption Perception Index by Transparency International, South Africa is the 70th least corrupt nation out of 180 countries. Glura Stefakomosi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Department of Mineral Resources has announced a 1 cent per litre increase for the price of 93 and 95 petrol to come into effect this week on Wednesday. Diesel will increase by 21 cents. The department has also approved an increase of 5.3 cents per litre in the retail margin of all grades of petrol to accommodate the annual wages increase of the forecourt staff in line with the MIBCO agreement that was signed on the 13th of December 2019. Before we close the bottom line and move to your sports, at the close of the markets, the All Share was down 1.03%. The Rand trading at 16.93 to the dollar. On the commodities front, a barrel of Brent crude oil was trading at $45.57 a barrel, and gold at $1,964.56. Let's take a look at the rest of your indicators.
Good evening to you and welcome to the Sports Desk.